Hi everyone. It's just coming up to 6. I'm Bryony, by the way. Just to let you know, we will get going soon. I'm going to mute myself until we're all here.
Can you see me? Bryony, I can't get my video working.
I'm going to sort this out. Give me 2 minutes, everyone, and I will be straight back with you. I'm not the tech host, but I'm going to, if I make you, hang on one second.
So just to say, Brian, I've just been on a Zoom and it was working. So is this something to do with recording?
No, it's nothing to do with you. It's just if you just mute and I'm going to work it out, okay?
Okay.
Okay, sorry everyone. We'll be with you shortly. Right, everyone, we're nearly there, I hope. I'm going to make Sean the host, and then hopefully he'll be able to turn his video on. And Sean, is this? Hey!
So me being the host, does that mean I have the power?
You have the power. You can switch off my video, but if you switch off my video, it won't be going back on. So, I'm so glad that worked.
So can I just say, I've been on a Zoom and I had a sort of 10 minutes gap between this and the previous Zoom. And I've got a little puppy called Meg, and she's 6 months old, and she's the best thing ever. She's so nice, but she does like to wee on rugs. And she actually got into a room she wasn't meant to be in, just behind me, and looked at me as if to say, "I'm sorry, I've done a wee on the rug." Well, sorry, this is post 6 o'clock. Is that sort of the wee watershed? Are we allowed to talk about
this?
We
are allowed to talk about watershed. I mean, just to let you know, we are live now. So people know that Meg is a dog, everyone. If anyone's just joined, Meg is a dog.
Not my wife. Anyway, so I'm clearing up the weed thinking, oh no, I've got like 2 minutes. So that's why I'm late. And I'm not sure I've got the lighting right here, but anyway.
The lighting is here. Perfect. And it's just glorious to see you. And thank you everyone for coming to Mental Health Mates at Home, which was delayed because of various reasons, mental health related, actually. I may as well just be honest about that. I was in a bad place, in a bad space, and so we had to move it. And I'm really grateful that we have amazing ambassadors like Sean who understood that. But we're here now. So thank you. Our amazing ambassador, Sean Fletcher, is joining us tonight. Sean is, he's a friend of mine. But we became friends. We'll talk to how we became friends in a bit. But Sean is, he presents on, now, if I get this wrong, Sean, please do tell me off. Good Morning Britain. I always call it Great Morning Britain, as if I'm like, I don't know, Sunday Morning Live, am I correct?
Yes.
And Country File, amongst other things. And Sean is also a great advocate for mental health. He presented an amazing panorama about child mental health that was based on his own experiences with his lovely son, Ruben, who I think of Ruben as a little boy because when I last met Ruben, he was what, 13?
I mean, have you met him since? You've probably just spoken to him on the phone, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes. The first time you met him was he was 13, and
but Ruben has OCD, and this is how we may as well. This is how Sean and I met. Should we go in on this?
Should we do it? Yeah,
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, meeting you changed my life. And it changed my perspective on mental health, and it was the beginning of Ruben's recovery, really, because we started to sort of understand it. But when we met you, we were rock bottom. Our family was unraveling fast. So you gave me a hug. I remember it was outside the Good Morning Britain studio. And you'd been on talking about mental health, maybe about your OCD, I'm not sure. And I was sort of behind the scenes because I hadn't been doing that interview. But I knew we just had this inkling our son had OCD. I thought, or maybe we just had the diagnosis or we're just about to get it. And he wasn't able to do very basic things. He couldn't get out of bed. He couldn't feed himself. Couldn't brush his teeth. It spiraled so quickly from being an anxious boy to just having basically a disability as big and as disruptive as any major physical disability. So we were really in a bad place. And I saw you and I said, I think my son's got OCD. And you just gave me a hug. Just gave me a hug, the biggest hug. If you've ever been hugged by Bryony, you'll know it. And I've talked about this with you on programs or on Instagram before. Every time it gets me, I feel emotional about it because they were hard times.
Yeah.
Seriously, that was hard time. And you just grabbed me, you just hugged me, and it was, I've got to say, I mean, it was amazing. And you met us a week later, and that's when you first met Ruben, and you said it was going to be all right. And you said, "Look at me, it's going to be all right." And I was thinking, "Oh, really?"
Maybe not. Maybe
maybe
we should be worried.
You really, because you just so full of energy and so much positivity. And I'm joking. You said, "Look at me, it's going to be right." And I did think, "Gosh, yeah, look how successful you are, and you've beaten the OCD." And I know, talking to you since, you have good times and bad times, but I could see a glimmer of hope. And so, going back to that first meeting, it did. It was the beginning of the recovery, and it took years, but it was the beginning of the recovery.
It was the beginning of I was still at the beginning of my recovery. I mean, I was, I'd only just set up Mental Health Mates back then, and I was, and the whole point of Mental Health Mates. So I should probably do an intro on what we're doing here tonight in case people have. So Mental Health Mates is peer support, and the idea is that we go out and you can walk and talk with people without fear of judgment. And when the pandemic hit, we obviously, because we couldn't go out together, we moved online to do these Mental Health Mates at home sessions, which we've kept up. And we're doing this one tonight. We're going to talk about sort of mental health and how getting outside can help. And obviously, I'm going to talk loads. I want to talk to Sean about, because when I see you on Instagram, which is sadly where I mostly see, well, it's where we see most people nowadays because we haven't been able to meet up. But you're always in these most incredible scenes of countryside or mountains when you're doing your job with Country File. But we want to talk a bit about that, and also about Ruben and how he's doing. But also I want people to be able to ask questions. So there's a little Q&A thing. Someone's just asked, should I see myself on screen? And no, you don't see yourself on screen, but you are there. And if you have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A box. If you have anything you want to ask Sean, anything you want to ask me, we'll do our best to answer it throughout. And there's also the chat function, which we'll be keeping an eye on, but it's really just a way to kind of connect, talk about mental health. And I also need to say a big thank you tonight, while I remember, to Jules. I'm wearing one of their Christmas tops. Oh, look, are you wearing
Well, how bizarre. As if we planned it.
Jules have been amazing. They have, to me, and I just need to say this, like as something that I set up out of desperation to meet other people like me who had OCD, that now companies like Jules are supporting us and allowing us to continue our work is just amazing. So I know it's a bit corporate, but it is really important, and I want to kind of say thank you to Jules, who have made us their Christmas charity. Anyway, let's start, Sean. So let's talk about, because Ruben, I don't know if anyone in attendance has ever listened to my podcast Mad World, where I talk to people about their mental health, but you very kindly, that first series, we had Prince Harry, we had all sorts of people, you and Ruben came on and spoke about his OCD, and that to me was one of the most still to this day, one of the most powerful podcast we've done. Ruben, sorry, my computer's going off. When I met him, it was like he was me when I was his age, and knew exactly the agony he was going through. And I remember saying to you, when I said to you, he's going to be all right, that was because he had two parents that were helping him out. And he came in and he spoke so honestly about OCD and the intrusive thoughts. How's he doing now?
Yeah, I mean, he's doing brilliantly compared to that time. He's brilliant. He's great, and he's very happy. And but he'll always have OCD. So the OCD is comes back at times. Anyone listening who has OCD or susceptibility to any mental health issue, I suppose it always comes back when you're tired, when you're stressed, when things in other areas of your life don't seem to be fitting together well. And that I guess he'll always, you tell me, but I think he'll always be susceptible to that. But he beats the OCD more days than not now, which is brilliant, and it's a triumph. When we came to you, so he was 13. I said to him, we met you before, hadn't we? And then I said to him, Bryony's doing a podcast. Would you like to do it? And he was like, yeah, I really want to do it. He was in hospital for 6 months, and I collected him from hospital, and we brought him to your office. And before then, I mean, he wasn't good on the way in the car. And I was thinking, I felt like, because when you're in the public eye, you always feel it's different for you because it's about your mental health. So you're putting it out there. But I always feel like I'm talking about mental health to make a change. And so parents who are in the same situation that we were in, terrified because their child is really ill, that they will listen and go, I'm not alone. And that's so powerful, because so many people have got in touch since doing that podcast, since doing the panorama, and said, we thought we were the only ones, and we're not. And then there are thousands, if not tens of or hundreds of thousands of parents out there who are in the same situation at different parts of the journey. So that's why I want to put it out there. And that's why I was thinking it'd be really good to do this podcast. But Ruben was not in a good place, even though he wanted to do it. And I thought, maybe I'm being an irresponsible father. But as soon as he got into that studio with you, and I think it was sort of with you, because particularly then, he'd be talking to us about OCD, thinking, these guys haven't got a clue what's going on. So my wife and I are thinking, I sort of get it. I've read about OCD. I understand how it works, but I don't get it because I don't have it. And then you walk in the room when we first met you, and you spoke a different language to him. And so we're going to do this podcast, and he's with someone. He's in a safe space because he was with you, like the first person he met who also had OCD. So yeah, we did that, and I still to this day get people texting, emailing or getting in touch on social media saying, I just want to tell you, we've listened to that podcast, because it's still out there, isn't it? We've listened to
yeah. You can go and listen to it. Don't go and listen to it right now, because we're talking. But when we finished, when this Zoom webinar has finished, you can go and listen to it.
Yeah, and actually, of all the things I do quite a bit of campaigning for mental health issues now. I'm particularly trying to champion OCD and people with OCD, and that podcast is, it's up there as one of the proudest things that I've ever done in my career. And I've lumped my career in with mental health campaigning. And it's one of the great things I'm most proud of, because people get in touch who I know how they feel. And there'll be people listening today. They can't do anything with their children. They're on a waiting list to get specialist help for 9 months, a year, like we were. And they're terrified because, 1 month, that's 30 nights you're dealing with a child, and you know, maybe they're suicidal, maybe they're struggling with OCD, whatever, depressed, whatever. You're terrified as a parent, and you can see this battle going on in your child's head, and you can do absolutely nothing about it. And it's such a hard feeling. And if anyone's listening, anyone is in that situation, firstly, you're not alone. There are so many of us out there. Secondly, there is help out there, and there are things you can do. I feel quite tearful going back over all of this. It's obviously very important to talk about it, but it was a really hard time. It was a really hard time. So I can't remember what your question was, but it's sort of going in circles. We came on and did your podcast, and it was one of I have fond memories of that podcast. It's fond memories. I cried all the way through it, basically, but I still really feel proud of that was done, and that you did that. And I think it's really important that you were doing those podcasts.
It's really funny because I've got to a stage now, and I think it's probably slightly pandemic related, but I feel very cut off from all of that. I feel very cut off from everything, really, and quite like I can't quite connect with with this mental health campaigning. It's almost like disassociation. And actually, I feel sort of, and I think I probably, like a lot of people, I think the situation we found ourselves in the last 2 years, to me, definitely as someone with a history of mental illness, I can say with confidence and not with any joy, but I have been suffering from depression. And it's okay. I know it's circumstantial, but I have that real inertia and that real kind of lack of feeling, I think, that you get when do you know what I mean, when you are in a depression. And I can talk about it, and it's only now really that these things are coming back. And so talking to you tonight, like that, to remember, like I suddenly started feeling about what it was like when I was 13. Yeah. And like there was the thought of being able to tell my mum or dad, I mean, I would never have even got thoughts and bless my dad, but it just wasn't anything. But I remember that real fear with OCD, with the OCD and the type I had, the pure O, you know, the intrusive thoughts. In case anyone doesn't really know, my brain was telling me that I was the worst person in the world, that I was a serial killing paedophile, and I might have blanked it out in horror. And I just didn't know how I could ever explain that to someone. You know, it was the worst feeling. And this is why it's so important we do have these conversations and we do connect, because it's only when we connect that you remember, I remember how bad it was, but B, how important it is we do this work and see how far I've come actually as a person, you know, because as you said, my OCD I still get it, and it's very crafty. So it'll come in and it won't get me. I don't think I'm a serial killing paedophile anymore, which is like a relief, right? Like I don't get that one anymore. But what I do, it'll tell me that I'm an awful person, that I've upset someone, that people are going to hate me, that I'm, it'll be really, that's how it'll kind of creep in a way that is perhaps a little bit more insidious, if that makes sense. Anyway, there isn't really a question here. I'm just sort of talking.
It's really interesting. It's, as you were saying that, so I haven't got OCD, but we all have obsessions and worries and anxieties. And so really just at the beginning there, when I was explaining, what was I explaining? That you said to me and Ruben and my wife, you said, don't worry, it's going to be fine. Look at me. And then I joked, so I'm telling this story to you just now, and I joked that, and I went, look at her, or whatever I joked. And then suddenly I'm thinking, oh, did I offend you when I said that? It was a joke. No, but I haven't got OCD, so I sort of let that go. But Ruben would be clinging on to that. Oh, I've done the worst thing. I've done so that, to someone who doesn't understand OCD, that might be one way it would manifest. And so before you know it, in 5 minutes, someone with OCD will be thinking, I've really offended Bryony by saying that one thing. And I mean, there are loads of cases where, it just goes around in your head, doesn't it? And I'm saying this as someone who doesn't have OCD, but I do have obsessions, and we all have rituals, and we all have worries and anxieties. And I just can't imagine what it would be like times by 100 if you have OCD. But that, just when you're explaining it, I get it. I get it completely.
I think it is. And I think it's like all of this stuff is rooted in the sort of yeah, we all have it to a certain extent. And but it's like when you were just saying that, I was thinking when I had to postpone this event because I was not in a good place and I couldn't, like there's times where I'm like, I can't go on screen and talk about mental well-being when I'm an absolute fucking mess. Do you know what I mean? By the way, I'm sorry for swearing, everybody. But like, and I remember messaging the woman from Mental Health Mates and thinking she's going to hate me, then messaging you thinking you're going to hate me, then thinking, oh my God, I've been really rubbish and I haven't replied to a text Sean sent in June and he must think I'm the worst person in the world. I literally spent 4 hours. 4 hours. I don't know if this resonates with anyone watching at home, but that thing of like where I can go, oh my God, if I don't, because we all, especially in this kind of world that we're in. Oh, look, here we go. Sarah Patton says, sat here nodding along with everything you guys are saying. So refreshing. Thank you, Sarah. But it is, this is why it's so not. I wish we could all do this face to face in a big room, right? With like a night. I can see you've got a nice cup of tea there behind you, or I could see. Wouldn't it be nice? I think that's what we've really missed, don't you?
Yeah, gathering. I mean, so when you were saying that you've felt cut off, have you not been meeting people? Have you?
I find that I have. It's really interesting when the pandemic hit and lockdown hit. There was almost, and this may sound terrible, but I'll just say I was almost relieved that my diary emptied, that I could be at home with my family, that I didn't have to go into it. It was like, oh, I can. I felt that sense of being under siege, which I think we all feel all the time with work. But what I've realized over time is that all of those little things that we don't like doing, that we all wake up and go, oh, no one wants to get on public transport, no one wants to go into work and have a meeting with someone, often the times we don't want to go, all of those things we wake up dreading doing are actually the things that the little challenges are actually the things that create well-being in the long term, because every day you do these little things you don't want to do and you prove that you're a fucking legend by doing them. You go, well, hang on, I didn't want to do that, but I did it and it was fine, and you pat yourself on the back. And what this does, what I realize, is it fills up a little wellness bank. So I think that for me, mental well-being is absolutely rooted in connection to others and challenging myself, not massively, it doesn't have to be. And so what I've realized is over time, and this is how depression and all these mental illnesses creep in, over time, my world has got smaller and smaller, and the sense of things that I feel I can do has got less and less. So I don't challenge myself. So sometimes there are times when even just meeting someone for a coffee fills me with absolute anxiety and horror. I sit and I think I can't do this. I'm not capable. I'm useless. This is clinical depression, and I sort of think it's the kind of, but I also think what's interesting is the first time in my life where I felt like this, but I've had the sense most other people feel like this too, which is unusual. And I think it's the sort of baseline mood that has been caused by this pandemic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit more hope than I would usually, because I know it's circumstantial and I have to force myself. Like I've just come here, I just had to go and interview a billionaire, and I've literally spent the whole week going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I did it, and and then I've come straight and I will feel good for those two things. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, the things you don't want to do. And of course I want to come and sit and talk to you, but the things we don't want to do I always say this are the things we need to force ourselves to do often.
Yeah, that sense of achievement is absolutely crucial. Yeah, I mean, so Ruben is 18, and he's taking a gap year, and that just as a teenager, I think is really important, because you could just sit in bed all day and do nothing. Yeah. He has to get out, and obviously with his OCD, you've got to get out and confront things. But because I'm doing all this by proxy, so I'm doing this as a father. And with my work, sometimes I'm away, but I'm home quite a bit now, thankfully, with him. So we spend a lot of time together, and I'm trying to push him to do stuff. But I know that if I push him to do too much, he'll start to feel like he's failing. Oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you should be getting a job, whatever, all that. And if I do that too much, then he's gonna think, I can't cope. And now he's getting better with the OCD. maybe he's showing signs of depression because, then I'm pushing him a bit too much, and maybe he thinks, oh, I've not achieved too much. But then you don't want to push too much. Then he doesn't. If you don't push too much, he doesn't do much, and then he doesn't have that sense of achievement. So it's a balancing act, and I'm doing that same balancing act, but I'm doing it by proxy. So I'm trying to do it in someone else, but it's hard, isn't it? But then the mind, your brain is so incredible, because that sense of achievement, like I've never heard it put like that, but it's like you're filling up your wellness bank, aren't you? It's great. All those things, the sort of horrible things, actually you're filling up the wellness bank. And then when things go, you call on that bank. You need that bank. It's so important. And when it's empty, that's when things start to go wrong.
Well, this is the thing. I think everyone's wellness bank is not just empty, it's in deficit. Do you know what I mean? At the moment. And so I have a real, I'm trying to push myself. I was wondering, because you've kind of worked throughout, and I can see you're going, where were you were you just somewhere with Country File?
Yeah, I was in the Cairngorms in Scotland, and it snowed even more now, I think, but it snowed quite a bit and it was freezing, but it's wonderful. Yeah, you say I worked throughout. So as soon as lockdown started, I'm freelance. The phone, so every job I do, Good Morning Britain will call up and say, can you do next week or whatever? Phone didn't ring for 3 months.
Okay.
So you didn't know that, but obviously I've worked since. And people are in much worse situation, right? We have our health and everything, so I'm not moaning, but I felt really anxious. I felt really anxious about that. And actually, it reminded me of a time when, I won't tell you which program, but one program that I still sort of work on. They basically sort of ended my contract, and it was like losing a job. And I knew it was coming months, in a few months. So it was sort of April time. And I remember that Christmas before, that feeling of total uncertainty and anxiety. And I can't say I suffer from mental health issues. I can't, I'm thankfully I don't. I see it in my son, and we've experienced it as a family. But we all have a threshold, and we all have a limit, and we all have mental health that needs nurturing and caring. So while I don't suffer from a mental illness, those 2 times when we went into lockdown and I didn't work for 3 months, I was terrified of that. And the time when actually it was even worse. I mean, I remember we would go to every Saturday, my wife and I would walk to a coffee shop to have a coffee, and I'd be crying. I'd be really upset, and it obviously was really affecting me in a bad way when this program said, we don't want you anymore. And they sort of have called me back as freelance, but it just reminded me that we all have a limit. Our mental health is absolutely crucial, and some people struggle in certain ways, but we all can struggle. And you may be the toughest guy, you may be I just say the Piers Morgan, but that person who is big on the outside and starts saying all sorts of stuff. But even he has a threshold and a limit, and he could go over that limit. And he might not show it, but he does. I mean, I don't know, he's not told me, but we all have a limit, and if we push that limit, our mental health deteriorates.
Jacqueline has asked, Sean, how do you deal with feeling anxious? What did you do during that period? And thank you, by the way, for speaking so honestly about that. I'm really sorry that you felt that, but I'm glad you felt able to say it.
Yeah, it's actually for the first time I've talked about it, and I don't talk about the program because I still work for them, and maybe it'll come out in the book or something. I don't know, in 20 years' time. So I'm lucky that I have a family. So there's 4 of us. My daughter, who's now 23, my son's 18. So I always had that base I could come back to. But I did a lot of talking with my wife. So those times, I don't know, as a bloke, I don't know how many blokes are listening to this. I don't know what's your breakdown of mental health mates. Are there more women than men? But with men,
there are more women, but I think it's important we talk about the men.
Okay.
There are men here. There are definitely men here. I'm looking.
Yeah, this is what I find interesting. There are lots of pressures on women, and Me Too has shown that it's tough. It's tough, and women are treated terribly in all sorts of ways. And that has to change. And 20 years ago, it was terrible. Now it's a bit better, but it's still a long way to go. I think the pressures on men are different, and maybe not as big. But I think as a man, when you're growing up, I always felt this pressure that I have to provide for my family. And maybe that's the reverse of girls are told, oh, well, you need to do the cooking and you need to do the washing. And actually, we need to break out of those stereotypes and do different things. But I always had this thing. So suddenly I'm told I'm going from a fairly well-paid job, and I based my mortgage on that. I based our lifestyle on that, all those things, to having nothing.
Mm.
It poleaxed me. I was, as I say, I don't know why. I mean, I am a bit of a crier, but I was really crying. I was trying to hide it because I thought people might recognize me. I'm in the coffee shop and it was horrible. It was a horrible time. So I had a good family around me. I spoke a lot to my wife, and one of the things to someone who's listening, I would say, if you're listening to someone in that situation, one thing I've learned is you can't fix them. You can't fix the situation. Maybe just listen, because my wife at times would be like, oh no, don't think that. That's ridiculous. You'll get a job. You'll be fine and all that. And sometimes you just need to listen, because, sometimes people come with a problem, and don't try and fix it. Don't try and say, because almost like you're belittling the problem. You just need to listen. And I think she did a lot of listening, and I'm really grateful for that. And then, obviously I got work and I got lucky, and I worked really hard to get work, and that's fine. And I look back on that period as a difficult period, but I'm better for it. But it's hard. I'm saying all this. I feel like, all the campaigning I've done in mental health has been about my son. And I don't want this to be about me, because I am so lucky that I don't struggle with a mental health issue. I mean, I would if I was pushed to the limit, but I don't. So I don't want it to be about me. It's not about me.
No, I don't. But
I really want it to be about people who really are struggling,
But also, you did struggle, and I just want to I also feel I think it's really important. We don't. We don't define people. Well, that person has mental health issues. That person doesn't. It's a continuum, and we all have the potential to do things. And I think it's really important. And what you touched on there, which really, really resonates with me, is that thing that in modern life, and certainly 21st century Western cultures. Sorry, my Apple Watch is telling me to breathe. I'm going to take it off.
Really useful, that, isn't it?
Right, I'm breathing. It was vibrating on my wrist. So but you talk about how the work went away, and that sense of we put a lot of our self-worth in outside things. Something I'm really realizing, which is fine when they're there, but when they go, it can be really hard. And I think that's something that really resonates with me, Sean. Totally, how much I totally think, I prop myself up so much. I prop my mental well-being up so much with validating myself through outside things. And when they go, and I've had an experience in the last week where something similar has happened, and I saw how wafer thin it was, how I just, and suddenly, and I remember my friend, and a friend said to me, Bryony, do you want to be happy? And I said, yes, of course I want to be happy. And then she said, are you willing to let go of what happiness looks like? And that was does it look like, I've got a job with, this company want me, and It's what is happiness essentially? What are we all looking for? I feel that I'm not really making much sense, but I never really do. But the pressures we put on ourselves to tick certain boxes make us really unhappy. The pressure, and anyway, I'm really glad you mentioned that. So
I mean, as you're speaking now, I'm just looking at you. Do look very well. I have to say, you do look very well. You look really
makeup on.
No, you look sort of no, but it's not the makeup. No, you look sort of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You can often see it in their eyes, even on the Zoom. I think you look like you're in a good place. I mean, you look. Is it a mask, or is it?
No, it's not a mask. I am in a good place, but this is the thing. I think being vulnerable and being open. Oh my God, I sound like some Hollywood therapist, but I think it's really possible. A friend of mine, I remember once. My wisest friend, I was on the floor, I was about a year sober, I was a complete mess, and she said to me, and I was crying on her, and she said to me, I've never seen you so well. And I said, what? And she said, because you're letting it all out, you're letting it go. I probably am physically the best Nick I am Yeah, although saying that, I've had anyway, I won't go into all of that, but I probably am quite well. I'm aware of all my feelings, and I allow myself to feel them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely.
But I'm physically, I think, quite well. Although that said, I had to go. Can I tell you something that happened yesterday? I had some blood tests a while ago for something routine. And anyway, the doctor called me. This is another thing when we talk about mental health. So everything's on the phone now. So the doctor called me yesterday and he said, well, I've got your blood test results. And I said, thank you. Okay, great. And he said, so the thing we were looking at is fine, but this other thing is really not okay. And I need you to go urgently to St. Thomas's and have a chest x-ray because your bloods are off and that's a high incidence of, I'm letting it all out now, of cancer. So I want you to go and have a chest x-ray just to check you don't have lung cancer. So this was in my room yesterday morning. And I was like, and I'm a hypochondriac, right? But even my brain hadn't gone there. Anyway, so I had to go today and my lungs are really, really good. They're in really good nick. The radiographer said to me, I said, can you tell that I occasionally smoke? He said, no. I thought, this is brilliant news. But so I've had quite a lot on my head, I think, in my mind.
Well, that's brilliant news. That's great to hear, because that isn't a worry for anyone. No, gosh.
Everyone's like, you've just given way too much information to share.
Well, I just saw something splash up there. I'm not looking at the chat, but someone says, you're so honest. I think that's what's so great about you. You're so honest. And by being honest with us, with Ruben, you change things for us. But there will be hundreds, thousands of people who will have seen, well, more than that, who will have seen you over the years talking about your mental health so honestly. And that will make a difference to them. They may not speak out, but hearing you say stuff. It's great. It's really good you're honest. I wanted to say, you mentioned I was in the Cairngorms in the snow. So
let's talk about the outside and the nature.
Yeah, I am really lucky that quite a few of the things I work on are outside. So Good Morning Britain is in the studio, Sunday Morning Live is in the studio. But when I do Country File, I don't do it all the time, but I do it quite a few times in the year. And also I've been doing something where I've walked, this is a few years ago, I walked around the Wales Coast Path. I did a television program. It's a 6-part ITV series. And I've recently done the same, walking along the Wales-England border. So it's Offa's Dyke Path. And it's a 6-part series, which is it's out in January, actually, on ITV. And they call it hammocking. So it's in between two Coronation Streets, which means you get really good audiences, even if the figures go right down. Coronation Street gets 5-6 million, and even if you halve that, it's still quite good, getting 3 million. So that's great. I've just been told where the slot is. It's sometime in January. I think it'll be a Tuesday for 6 weeks because it's a 6-parter. So during that those filmings, you're outside all the time. It gets pretty cold at times. It was really cold when we were doing Country File in the Cairngorms. But what I look around sometimes and I think I'm so lucky that I'm outside, and the reasons I think that being outside is so good. Firstly, you look around and there's often you're in this beautiful places and you just think, gosh, seeing the beauty around you and seeing the scale of some of the things. So I was in this snowy area around mountains and everything. Firstly, it makes you feel quite insignificant, but in a positive way, because your problems, the things that you're worrying about, you just think, wow, there's so much more to life and there's so much more to enjoy. The way things look, it's just so beautiful. The key thing for me, though, is being outside, is the exercise. And this is what we do with Mental Health Mates. Just walking. It doesn't have to be running. You've done a couple of London marathons, haven't you? But it doesn't have to, but it doesn't have to be running. It can be walking. And I think the walking is great for so many things. Firstly, your endorphins. I'm just to take you on a side here. So I did an interview for Sunday Morning Live with a guy called Wim Hof, who's a cold water expert.
Oh, yes.
And part of the program, for the interview, before I had to film myself in the shower, having a cold shower. So I did that. That was in June. And every morning now I've been having a cold shower for 2 minutes before I have a normal shower. And that's meant to release the endorphins. And so does exercise. When you do exercise, when you've run or when you've gone on a long walk, you feel really good. Feel like it's like a sort of mini drug, isn't it? I just feel
yeah.
And I feel that after my cold showers as well. You just feel buzzing. There's something just I don't know what it is. I know what it is. It's the endorphins, but you just feel really good. And then couple that with walking with someone else and talking to them. It's like a dream combination, because you feel good. You're walking with them. There's something about walking that's sort of different to sitting down in a coffee shop and chatting with them, where you feel like you've got to fill the gap. You can talk and you can break off. You can look around. You come back to the conversation. And if you're walking for an hour, 2 hours or whatever, you know, a nice long, or, you know, all day, or even half an hour, there's something about you're together, you're achieving something together. I cannot think of anything bad about it apart from when it's raining like it has been today.
Yeah, but even then,
so
how
good.
good do you feel when you get home? You're like, yes, I'm a legend.
Even when it's raining.
Also, Jacqueline, who's like, thank you, Jacqueline. You're contributing some really awesome comments. Everyone is. Jacqueline makes the point, even if you don't talk about yourself on MHM walks, it's just having others around you. But you make the point as well, Sean, is like there's something about walking side by side because you don't have to look them straight in the eye. That actually, you know, enables you to talk more freely. On the subject of Wim Hof, I think he's a little bit, I mean, like, I'm mad, okay? Like, I'm not, I don't mean that in a, on the subject of cold and exercise, I started doing something recently which is completely bonkers, and I'm sure Wim Hof would appreciate it. And I'm going to invite you to come with me to Tooting Bec Lido to do some cold water swimming, where the temperature reached today 3.5 degrees in water. And it is honestly, I was like, why didn't no one tell me about this cold water swimming malarkey? And then I'm like, everybody was telling me about this cold water swimming malarkey. But I'm like, that's the quickest way to make yourself feel like a legend. You get in for a minute and a half and you're like, look at me. And the rest of the day, your whole body's going, thank you, thank you, thank you. And you don't have to like, it's not really exerting. So I'm wondering, should we mental health mates set up? Yes, Ems Finch, you can come to Tooting Bec Lido with you there. Here we go. Maybe a MHM session there. I think this is a really good idea. Mental health mates, cold water swimming, because also people talk about it a lot. It's something you have to be really careful with. You can't, some people go in for too long, they get after drop, they basically get hypothermia. You've got to be really careful. But if you do it right and you do it in a group, it's a really great thing to do. So Sean, will you come and lead the first MHM cold water swimming?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, so Tooting, yeah, I can get to Tooting. I can get to, is it a weekend? Is it when?
We can do it whenever. I mean, I'm just talking, I actually do think there are mental health swims out there. I think there is something on Instagram that I follow, but doing all of these things, you know, if I had my way, if I wanted like really good mental health, I would just spend the whole day exercising, not in like an obsessive, like beasting myself way, but like things like walking. I would be outside walking. I would be swimming with you and Ems Finch, and I would go for a walk with Jacqueline, and I would then do a bit of yoga, maybe a bit of yin yoga by myself, you know, and it would just be moving my body in a kind of gentle way. And I really do think it is one of the best things for mental health, and getting yourself out there. Like there's that phrase, isn't there? Move a muscle, change a thought.
Yeah.
And it sort of it sums it up really. Ems is just like, Ems is going to organise a mental health mate swim. That would be good.
I'd like to. So what worries me is that because I've been told that a cold shower, it feels colder at this time of year. Well, it's really interesting in our house. It's sort of cold, and then obviously it goes through, the water comes after about 30 seconds, comes through a warm patch in the house. So you get a nice warm patch. You think, oh, that's great. And then the water that's out on the street obviously gets to the shower and it's freezing. But I've been told that's only about 12 degrees, 10 degrees in a shower. 3.5 degrees. I mean, I don't know how you do that.
It's very interesting. There's a routine to it, which I think routine is very important for good mental health. And I just generally, and so because it's good, you know where you are. But there's a routine to the swimming where I lay out everything in the little hut in the order that I know I'm going to get back into it. I have a little like sheepskin thing, which sounds really posh, but it's not. I bought it for like 20 quid on Amazon, on the floor, so my feet aren't too cold. And I have my dry robe, my towel, and then I put my hat on and I get in, and it seems you do it, and I do a minute for each degree. But that, I don't, I'm quite hardy, and some people.
What do you mean for each degree?
So if it's 3 degrees, I wouldn't stay in for longer than 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So, but like I did start back in the summer So when the water was like 16, 17 degrees, and I've taken it down and I've gone down with it. But it is incredible. And what I love is the color, the brightness, the being out there, the tooting Lido, the sky. It's this huge expanse. It's 91 meters. So there's the sky, and that, living in London, is the closest I can get to kind of, you know, to that thing that, like, that amazing walking, you know, the walking the coast of Wales or something. It's like my equivalent, and I can just nip off in my lunch break, or I say my lunch break, like as if I go into an office. I sit here where I'm talking to you now, and I just nip off, cycle down there, run down there, get in, come back, and it sort of sorts me out.
So I did some cold water swimming while filming one of the series that's going to go out actually in January. I went on the River Wye, and it's the first time I've done it. So this is before all the cold showers, and I got in, and the lady is, I think she's called the Wild Woman of the Wye, Angela Jones, I think her name is. And so we did a few breathing exercises, and I'm thinking my feet are freezing, just my feet were in, and then we just sort of went for it, and it takes your breath away when you're going quite quickly like that. And it's quite fast flowing, the Wye. So I assume lots of cold water from mountains has come down. It took my breath away. And this is the danger. I mean, you know, you hear of people getting into all sorts of bother where they jump into cold water, you know, teenagers showing off, and you get in and you sort of breathe really quickly. And if you breathe all water in, that's when you get into all sorts of trouble. But, you know, I was with her with the float, but no wetsuit. And it was so cold, and it was, you know, there's a drone over me filming me, and my reaction, I'm like, can't breathe. Anyway, we got out only about a minute and a half later, and then I was meant to stop, and they gave me a microphone, and I was going to do a little piece to camera and just say my reaction. And I don't think they could really use it, but I was high. I was genuinely high. Yeah. And I was, because my body reacts and then gets really warm, and I was just speaking 10 to the dozen, and I felt really good, and it was really weird. And then they quickly got me out and put something over me and kept me warm.
Probably hypothermic.
Get very cold very quickly. But at that moment, I was high. I mean, I genuinely was just like buzzing on another level. So yeah, I get it. I completely get it. It does terrify me though.
It is. You do have to be really careful. Don't try this at home. I mean, if you just had a river running through your home, I'd be like, that would be a bit weird anyway. But you do have to be careful. Yeah, rivers. You don't. Yeah, it's. That's why the Lido feels safe, because there's a lifeguard there. There are other people there, and you know, I'm sort of accountable. But yeah, wow. I feel like I'm just gonna ask a few. Loads of people have been like writing questions and stuff, so I wanna get to a few of those before we wrap up, because I actually feel, Sean, like I could just chat to you all night. We definitely need to have a lunch. So someone asks, Sean, will you now deal with another situation differently after what you experienced last year during the lockdown?
As in when I didn't have work, Do you,
having experienced or maybe just also having experienced what you have with your son, has that changed your perspective of how you deal with difficult situations?
Yeah, very much so. I think the experience of all these things, you know, as you get older, you experience more things, and as you get older, I worry more, and I worry about my children. You always worry more about your children, but also if you sort of got skin in the game, you've been there, you've been in that situation. So when he's not, you know, it's not always up, you know, he has some down times. I sort of think, well, we've been here. And the time when I met you and he was rock bottom and we were rock bottom, I was terrified because it was the unknown. And I think knowing roughly where you're going and how you can react to things does help. So definitely with our son, we know a lot more about what to do and where to go. So we had really good treatment eventually, sort of, I think it must have, you know, over a year after he was diagnosed with OCD at the Maudsley Hospital, specialist centre for OCD. And one of the therapists, like you, they changed our lives. I mean, they got him on, they gave him the tools to deal with the OCD. Because I remember you telling me, it's great you've got it young. He's 13 or 14 or whatever. It's fine. I mean, that's much better. That's great because he'll have the tools. And I remember thinking, why is she saying this? We're our family's unraveling, and we are, you know, it almost tore our family apart. But you were so right. You were so right, because if a child gets given the tools to deal with their mental illness, they will have every chance to give it a crack. And I mean, so many people I know, and I include you in this, Bryony. And I remember you telling me, were you diagnosed when you were 30 or in your 30s?
I was, well, I didn't get any help until I was in my 30s.
Yeah, you were diagnosed much younger. And I think that's really tragic that I know people who were only diagnosed in their 30s. And I think that's really sad because for 30 years of their life, they've been battling this thing, this monster, not knowing what this monster is. I often think of it as almost like, our mantelpiece here, when we were having arguments in this room and it was sort of basically caused by the OCD and things were going wrong and everything. It's almost like the monster was sitting on that mantelpiece, the little OCD monster, just pulling the strings, making sure our family would divide even more and pulling it. And I think of that a lot with mental illness. And I just think, yeah, we were given the tools early on to deal with it. So I would sit in the therapy quite a lot. So I'm waffling, but just in answer to that question, what they often did was I would go along to the therapy with Ruben and I would sit in half of it. And I learned so much about OCD then and how we should react and what we should be doing. So I think the big thing for me is the experience of feeling those lows, the experience of what to do. And I don't get it right. I make lots of mistakes, but I sort of feel like I've sort of been there and we got out of it then, so we can get out of it again. So that's sort of the answer to the question.
Yeah, it's one of those. Jacqueline has asked me, how do I get over those intrusive thoughts? Was it counselling, medication? She's also asked, what can we do to get support sooner than later, apart from going private? I'll quickly answer that, Jacqueline. My advice to you is that you can self-refer to the NHS for what they call IAPT services, which is it's like a not very easy to say way of saying that's their CBT and the counselling. And you can do that by, if you Google self-refer IAPT, IAPT, and perhaps my lovely Jess from Mental Health Mates can type it into the chat box for you. But you can self-refer online for these services on the NHS. And they can give you things like CBT. But my other advice to you is to read as much as you can about it. Give yourself the knowledge. So there are loads of books out there, and off the top of my head, I should know them. Oh, there's my book, Mad Girl. But there's also, like what I'm talking about is proper books that my book is a proper book. But books by people that are trained in counselling and in psychiatry. There's a really good one that I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you go on to say Amazon or Google OCD books, there will be there's a wealth of them. There's one called that's what it's called Overcoming OCD. And it's David Veal, VEAL. But read as much as you can, inform yourself, because when you know what it is you're dealing with, even when you're in it and it's really hard, you at least have that intellectual knowledge in you that you can, even if only one finger can cling to it, that's better than nothing, if you see what I mean. So I think sort of, if you can't get, and Body Keeps the Score is great. There's loads of when I'm great for trauma, Michelle, you're right, there's loads of amazing. I should probably come up with a reading list to put on Mental Health Mates of all the books that I read that help me when I'm down. The other thing is The Road Less Travelled by Gregory M. Peck, fantastic. There's loads of books, and in fact that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up with a book list and put that down. Right.
One thing I'd say, just to say, one thing when we would go to CAMS when we went for the referral, but also just normal CAMS, just for sessions, Ruben had been awful all week. And then when we got there, he seemed to be fine. And I think what you have to do as a parent, if you're in that situation, is make sure you project what it was like at the worst time. Because as Brits, we're sort of, it wasn't that bad, and you sort of play it all down. No. These services are overstretched and underfunded, and you need to make sure they know that you were crying at midnight and your son or daughter was kicking off and you thought you were worried for their life. They need to know that situation as well. And if that means you're crying, and you need to make sure they know it, because I remember the first few sessions we were sort of playing it down, and that did us no good. So that's
really good advice, Sean. Like, really write down the most
Yes.
Like write down before you go in the most awful experiences. That sounds weird, but it's there because you can panic and you can freeze.
I saw some just that I videoed myself. I didn't see the rest of it, but we did actually video it, and it felt cruel, I must admit. But we were able to at times show the therapist how bad things had got because they just didn't see it in the hour session we had each week.
It's a really good idea, actually.
It's hard though. It's a hard balance because it's not very nice filming someone who's having a complete breakdown. I mean, that's not. You just have to judge it yourself. But if you feel that that's the only way you're going to get the right level of care, because the people who you're seeing, who you're trying to get the care from, don't seem not to believe you, that might be the only thing you have to do.
Yeah. Mazat asks, I do the 2-minute cold shower every morning, but cannot motivate myself to get out in this weather. You're still doing the 2-minute shower, so you're still a legend. But how do you motivate yourself to go for a walk, Sean?
How do you motivate yourself? So why would they not want to go? Because the weather.
They can't get the motivation, and maybe they're depressed. Maybe they're low. Like it's difficult.
Okay. So I always think you'd need to try and think about the time that you went and it went well, and just remember that I'm sure you've been for a walk and you've thought that was great. Go with someone. Why don't you arrange a time every day that you walk with a friend, and then it's hard to let them down. So you've got those two things. You always remember the benefits. And make a date with someone, and then you can't let them down. Make a date with 10 people. Go on a mental health mates walk. You can't let them down. You've got to go. Tell them you're going, and then when you don't feel like going that morning, they might call you up because they're expecting you there. It's almost when you're in a good place, setting some targets and things that you can't sort of get out, some safety mechanisms. So when you're in a bad place, those mechanisms come in. That safety net comes in.
That's really good. And also the one thing I would say, Mazat, is that remember, most people don't want to go out and do the walk or go out for the exercise. Like I did not, that first mental health mates that I did back in 2016, I didn't want to go out the house. I was so depressed. I didn't want to go at it, but I didn't regret doing it. And that's the thing. Like, remember, you are not alone in not wanting to do these things, but you won't regret doing them. And the other thing is I realized if my brain doesn't want me to do something, I should probably do it. And if it does want me to do something, I probably shouldn't. So my brain often says to me, Bryony, let's get in 5 burgers, a bottle of vodka, let's not get out of bed. I'm like, stop it, brain. Why after 41 years do we still not know what's good for us? Anyway, quickly, Michelle Bell says there's a terrible sense of guilt when you watch your child suffer from mental health conditions. The sense of helplessness is unreal. It helps to persevere though, as I now have a happy, healthy son. Oh, Michelle, that's so lovely to hear. Someone's asked about shopping addiction. So there's loads of stuff for drugs and alcohol, but nothing about shopping. That's really interesting. And I will see if we can perhaps mine. There should be a 12-step fellowship for that. But I'm not entirely sure, but we'll have a look into that for you, my love, and see if we can put that on the website. Right. I've really enjoyed this. Someone else just said, thank you, but binge eating disorder. Listen, we could talk about this. We could talk about all this stuff for hours. Well done, Ems, for tackling your binge eating disorder.
I mean, we were going to talk a bit about Christmas, weren't we? But I think we're probably out of time. I just wanted to say, Christmas is this time of year, particularly on social media, where everybody's meant to have fun and it's meant to be brilliant and it's meant to be amazing. And I think that some people do have a lot of fun, and it is great. You meet lots of family, I'm sure lots of people, but that really emphasizes it when it's not fun, and it puts lots of pressure on things for people to have fun. And social media doesn't help. Even on Christmas Day, you look at your social media and everybody's having fun, and you think, well, I'm not having fun.
No.
It's a hard time. It is a difficult time for lots of people.
It is. And can we just say, Sean, that it's really clear here which one of us is the professional television presenter and which one isn't. Love that. Brian, we're supposed to be talking about Christmas. I'm like, what?
I texted her this morning and said, oh, what should we talk about today? And she said, we're going to talk about Christmas. So I've written notes here. No, they're not. But no, I didn't. But I did think about it.
Do you know what?
Do we get cut off at 7, or can I?
No, we can talk. Come on.
We go down. I'm an only child, but I've married into my wife is one of 5, so I'm married to this big family. And at Christmas we go down to Wales. Not all of us, but I tend to go to my parents-in-law. And there's a lot of pressure. We went down to my father-in-law's birthday last weekend, and it was basically like Christmas because we went down there and saw a few other members of the family. There was no pressure of Christmas. No presents, no, just sort of we went down and said happy birthday and had a nice meal. And do you know what? In some ways, I enjoyed it much more because there's none of that pressure. There's none of that. Oh, you've got to go and see this person. You've got to see. Well, it is important to see those people. It just felt relaxed, and we did it when we wanted to. And that's the thing with Christmas. There is so much pressure to have fun, and not all of us do. And I think that's fine. That's fine if you don't. If you don't have fun, it's not the end. It's you don't have to. And
I'm really glad you mentioned this because I was supposed to mention this, but also this is why when we were working with Jules about coming up with like how we can we can do some mental health campaigning through the stores, we really didn't want to use that term Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas because it's like that the pressure just there. Like have a happy Christmas, and I'm very much of the belief that we need to allow people to be happy, sad, angry, whatever they want to be. So we were really we're like, have a meaningful Christmas, right? You don't have to be happy. And I think you're absolutely right. Christmas it's a day. It's maybe tops, it's 3 days, and I know there's a run up to it, but you can do it however you want. And I've only just realized that, just before the pandemic, and this is a slightly sort of like privileged situation, but me, my husband and my daughter, we just went to Thailand, and my mum was not happy about that. Okay, and she kicked up quite a fuss about it, and we went, no, we want to go and just be the 3 of us on the beach. Looking back, thank God we did it, because but that I had this guilt, and I had this, and I was like, it's just today. This is an opportunity for us to go and get a break and be together, and I don't really care that there's no, there's no snow, and there was Father Christmas on a jet ski actually, which was quite interesting to see. But and I've carried that through. Obviously, I haven't gone to Thailand again for Christmas. It's very expensive. Also pandemic, but we, this year we're just going to go to Cornwall and just have a quiet one and get in the sea on Christmas Day.
Oh, the cold sea. Oh, that's it. Cornwall, that's the Atlantic, isn't it?
It's going to be a lot warmer than Tooting Lido. But I think that is that thing, is the expectations. And my husband keeps saying, what do you want for Christmas? And I'm like, I don't really want anything. Yeah. I don't really want anything. I just want to have a chill time. And genuinely, after the year I think everyone's had, and I've had bad years before. I've had worse years than this, truth be told. And I'm like, I just want to go, and I just want to be content. I don't need to be happy. I don't need to be, but I just want to be, do you know what? I just want to be content to just be, and not be wanting anything more. Not be like, I need to do this, I need to do that now, I need to reach this goal, I need to reach that goal, I need to I just want to sit on my ass and eat chocolate without any fucking guilt.
It's true though. I think that we just pile so much pressure on ourselves at Christmas. You said something about Thailand and it made me think, but I've completely forgotten it. It wasn't
Thailand. Everyone who's up with there, who wants to go to Thailand? I don't know, we might have to quarantine for 14 days when we get there. Yeah. Anyway, I think we've that's Michelle said that's my next book, Without Any Fucking Guilt. God.
Yes.
That's a whole other hour. Sean, it's been so lovely to chat to you, and I'm going to text you afterwards and arrange to actually see you, because I need to give you a hug, and I need to have a hug from you. Yeah, I wish I could give everyone hugs right now. Thank you so much. We will be back next month for more of this, but with a different guest. Sean, can you tell us when your program is on then?
Because
I want to watch it.
So I think we've been told the provisional date 17th of that week of the 17th of January. I think it might be the 18th, one of those days. I'll put it on social media. once I know for sure.
And
In
if you're not,
sandwich between Coronation Street, apparently a Coronation Street sandwich.
and if you're not following Sean on social media, why?
At Sean SEAN Fletcher TV.
Okay,
I'll let you know. Yeah.
And thank you again to Jules for supporting Mental Health Mates and allowing us to spread the mental health message through all your stores. It really does mean a lot, actually. It means a hell of a lot. And that's the most amazing Christmas present, actually, is that just to be able to keep on spreading the Mental Health Mates word. I'm gonna sort out this cold water swimming with Ems Finch, and you're coming too, and you can get Wim Hof involved. I wanted to tell everyone. I was going to say have a happy Christmas, but you don't have to have a happy Christmas. No pressure. Just have a meaningful Christmas. If you want to check out our walks, you can go to our website mentalhealthmates.co.uk, or go to the website, because I sadly I don't know what the Instagram is off the top of my head. It's like at MHM. I'm terrible. Yeah. I'm not going to make a career as a TV presenter, Sean.
That's it. Oh, hang on.
At Mental Health Mates. Thank you.
Health Mates.
And I'm going to get that book list together. And what a joy to chat to you. Massive hug to you. Massive hug to Ruben and your wife. And thank you, everyone. Even Louise, thank you. Look, Louise is here from Italy. Thank you, everyone, for watching us tonight. Tune in to our Instagram for next month's details. And I'll leave it there. Bye.